So if this space looks a little bit different, it's because I'm filming in the entry to my home in Somerset West, and it's a cold and rainy day in Cape Town. We've had some of the wettest weather we've had in years here in Cape Town, and of course these unconventional weather events are happening all over the world, whether it's the fires in Canada, floods in Germany and China. It's happening all over the world. And this reminded me of a book that I read probably a year or so ago by Harmut Rosa. It's called Resonance, a Sociology of Living. And Harmut Rosa is a sociologist from the University of Jena that I visited in 2018. And this particular book speaks about a notion that Rosa identified in his sociological work, which he calls social acceleration. So I've spoken about this before in the video where I talked a little bit about burnout and merit and meritocracy. But the principle in Rosa's work is that we are facing three major crises in the world today because of social acceleration. So what is social acceleration? Well, simply stated, social acceleration is that tendency that we have in contemporary society to want to produce more and more because we believe that progress is a necessary and important thing. And in order to sustain the continued production, we need continued consumption. So people need to earn more, to spend more, to buy more, so that we can produce more. And Rosa says that this leads to three predominant crises in the world. The first one is the one that we are facing at the moment, which is the environmental crisis. The reality is that the planet cannot sustain the levels of abuse that we are putting it through as we use up non-renewable resources, pollute the environment, all for the sake of production and so-called progress. We are speeding up production, becoming more and more efficient at abusing the planet and ultimately causing our own demise so that we can consume. The second crisis that Rosa identifies is what he calls the crisis of democracy. So I'm recording this video 2 weeks after the well-publicized looting that took place in South Africa, which initially began because of a group who objected to the jailing of the former South African president, Jacob Zuma, who by general standards is a problematic and corrupt individual. But the thin veneer that exists between political protest and social unrest was quickly punctured. And we saw in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng, two provinces in South Africa, how large-scale looting took place. People just went into shopping malls and walked out with couches and televisions and all sorts. And of course, some people have said that this is because of the massive levels of inequality and poverty that we face in South Africa. And I think that there's something true to that. Desperate people resort to desperate measures. And we begin to dehumanize ourselves and others and the systems in which we live, and begin to treat them like commodities, like things that we need in order to consume. We think that somehow commodification and the gaining of things that have value will make us happy. And so we're beginning to see these crises of democracy emerging. Of course, that was the same work that we saw referred to in those books on meritocracy, and Michael Sandel's work on meritocracy and the failing of democracy. But we see it also in the work of people like Francis Fukuyama, his book on the politics of identity. People are finding themselves in a position where the gap between the elites and the population, the general population, between the rich and the poor, is absolutely unsustainable. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and many people feel trapped in a society that robs them of their meaning. So that's the second thing, the failing of democracy. The third thing that Rosa identifies is the psychological crisis. And this is this notion of burnout, the fact that we live in a world where we no longer find resonance with the world in which we live. There's a sense of what he calls muteness. And the book is beautiful. It tells the stories of a number of people who live their lives in different ways, people who are of a similar age, a similar gender, similar income level, and how one finds fullness and flourishing and the other finds emptiness and muteness in their life. And I must say that as I read the work, I could identify that both in my life and in the lives of others. So perhaps today this is an invitation to say, let's think a little bit about this notion of social acceleration that we've so critically bought into. Let's think about the role that we play in that. What are our deepest desires? What are the things that are our ultimate loves that we think will bring us the greatest happiness and joy? And how are we contributing towards this increase in consumption and production that leads to the environmental crisis, the crisis of democracy, and our own psychological crisis? So thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's a complex issue. I'm not sure what the answers are to it. I can see some of the problems, but maybe you have more insight. Thanks for watching, and please stay in touch at Digital Dion on Twitter or Instagram, my website dionfoster.com, or Dion A. Foster on Facebook, and of course this channel Dion Foster on YouTube. Thanks for watching.